To improve valuation infrastructure in a country or in a city, it all starts from property rights clarity. It requires comprehensive records and then ability to capture price data from transactions. And we all know how commonly this is very challenging in terms of accurate price data and access to it. The national valuation standards we spoke about and the qualifications of professions, and then the oversight, the ability to license and regulate oversight for valuers. And in the end, we have to be able to also assess social and economic impacts of property taxes in order to make them attractive. Next slide, please. So I'm going to bring in a Himalayan small country to this discussion. It is Bhutan. Bhutan is a country of about 700,000 people, so it's quite heterogeneous Buddhist state, which used to not so long ago be closed from visitors, for example, a few decades ago. They do have quite good land registering cadastral mapping system in place, so the records are in principle in good shape. They're working on integrating land and building information to joint systems, and there is quite active prime property market which focuses on apartment leasing. However, those leases are not registered as we speak and publicly accessible. There's also a very common practice of preparing two lease documents, one for lodging to the records and one for keeping it between parties only. The same with sales. There's therefore frequent under-declaration of land transaction prices, and overall, the country is suffering from very low market transparency, which makes the price data access a really, really big challenge. The valuation infrastructure is relatively weak, still existing. It's not that there's nothing, and there in one of the most direct consequences on this is that there are question marks on the fairness of compensation that is applied to land acquisition. There are also question marks around mortgage lending and the accuracy of values acquired for mortgage lending. The same with insurances. There are disaster insurance products, and those are based on values that are not very much verifiable in terms of true market values. Next slide, please. So there is a mass valuation system. It's a heroic, very small resource exercise that have resulted to relatively good approximate mass valuation system, but it was designed initially for land acquisition. And valuers know that mass value should not be applied directly to land acquisition, and therefore it has actually become a dead letter in land acquisition, because parties subject to land acquisition can opt for replacement land instead of monetary compensation, and they all opt for that replacement land. Financial institutes use the same mass values. They add a lending premium for their mortgage lending, which still keeps the values in rather abstract level compared to true market values. The building valuation is based on replacement cost, and it's a relatively well-maintained system. But the location-specific impacts are not really entertained very well on that. So overall, mass values used in Bhutan fall short of market values in all market-active areas. In areas where there's no market or very, very low activity, people tend to be happier with the values that the mass valuation provides. Since 2024, the mass values have been used for land and property taxation, and while there was a common complaint about the level of mass values when they were applied to land acquisition, that they were too low, now all of a sudden, when the same values are applied to taxation, there is a common complaint that the values are too high. I guess this is what you could be expecting. Anyway, the mass valuation system works quite well for the taxation purpose. But then I mentioned already the insurances, the financial sector, and also public land management. When they make decisions on properties, they are using compromised value data. And actually, you would be surprised to hear that in Bhutan, there's not a single one licensed valuer. There's no regulation for valuation profession. And there are people who practice valuation, but they are self-taught, usually from civil engineering background. They're good people, but the profession is not regulated. Next slide, please. So we have been supporting the Bhutan now for about 16, 18 months or so. And through one of our lending operation with the government, the valuation agency of Bhutan was upgraded to a division, which increased its resources and ability to do good mass valuation. We also provided a training course together with University Technology Malaysia that trained 30 valuation practicing individuals in Bhutan representing private and public sectors with an interim valuation course. This represents about 50% of a master's degree requirements in UTM, and some participants are aiming to continue to a full master's degree. We have also helped Bhutan's first land valuer cadre, there's 30 people or so, to draft their first set valuation standards, which the Ministry of Finance and the Land Valuation Division wants to submit to the government by the end of June this year, and hopefully have them adopted as the first national valuation standards by the end of this year. The valuation profession also has ambition in joining International Valuation Standards Council. Next slide, please. As we speak, the National Valuation Standards are on their 6th draft. They are quite basic interpretation of International Valuation Standards. It's like a starting document, and they are not contesting anything that is in the International Valuation Standards in terms of methodology and the conduct of valuation. I think the main questions they try to answer is that what is the Valuer Association and its role in Bhutan? What is going to be the regulatory agency for valuation in Bhutan, and how the professional oversight, accreditation, and code of conduct and so on will be monitored and provided in Bhutan. In parallel, we are helping to create a valuation education review, which will cover entire South Asia, because we are identifying quite a lot of demand for valuation education and very limited supply. And we expect that national valuation standards and profession will be created by next calendar year, and next calendar year we'll see the first valuers accredited officially and formally in Bhutan, and can start practice both in private and public sectors. This has been a very positive exercise, and this is something that we'd like to do elsewhere as well. It's a very rewarding way of assisting countries and cities in actually getting into new era in terms of access to proper values. Just to close, very few words of our ongoing collaboration with the ATER PPN in Indonesia. We are supporting the investments to the next stage mass valuation system in Indonesia, moving from value zoning to parcel-based values. And I think it's very important to start also in Indonesia very strongly thinking about how do we integrate also buildings and make this a full real estate valuation system in Indonesia as the backbone, as a background or approximate valuation system that will then help all the other sectors of valuation. This activity for us is part of our integrated land administration spatial planning project that has just started and will last for next 5 years, us working closely together with the ATR PPN in implementation. To conclude, land administration system, property records, market regulation, access to valuation and valuation standards, they form the basics of valuation infrastructure that is needed in every country to make valuer profession successful. Informality and lack of market transparency and lack of standardization and regulated professions still are big challenges in many countries, and we at the World Bank are very much interested in trying to improve this situation. If not, these challenges compromise tax revenue, compensation fairness, and business development across the board in the countries and cities. So let's us unify and try to improve this situation. I thank you very much for, and it looks like you guys are a few slides behind because I forgot to ask you to move the slides. Apologies, but I have reached the end of the presentation, and thank you very much again for this opportunity, and I wish you for the very best for the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mika, for this compelling presentation. Our next speaker is going to be Zara, Zara Haryapetian from the ADB, who will talk to us about a number of the projects of the ADB. The ADB is also a member of the IVSC. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here today and to share with you what we do at the Asian Development Bank in the context of compulsory land acquisition. So my name is Zaruhi Hayrapetian, and I'm Senior Safeguard Specialist at the Asian Development Bank. The topic we will explore today is beyond the market value, what affected people knows that we may not know about valuation. And this is about rethinking the valuation process, not just a technical exercise, but as a core part of social impact assessment. And this is very much aligned with the main messages shared with us earlier by Honored Minister Dermawan at the beginning of the day. Before we dive into the valuation in social impact assessment, I would like to share with you who we are as Asian Development Bank and what we do. So we are not a commercial bank. We are a development partner for different governments and private sector clients. And our mission is to achieve a prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable Asia and Pacific. We work with governments and also private sector clients. The mission is to reduce poverty and improve quality of life through the investment in different development projects. This map shows the breadth of our engagement. ADB works in 46 developing member countries across Asia and Pacific. And we have 68 member countries, both regional and global partners. In Indonesia, ADB's active sovereign portfolio totaled to $6 billion up to the end of last year, and it covers 22 projects. Private sector portfolio is more than $1 billion in Indonesia. So where are we investing? ADB invests in solar power, in wind power, in education in Sri Lanka, healthcare in Mongolia, transport infrastructure in Uzbekistan, affordable housing in India. But sometimes new infrastructure can require land acquisition and lead to resettlement and impact peoples and their livelihoods. If we do not manage it well, this can result in impoverishment, in marginalization of people, in unemployment and other social losses. If we manage it properly, it can lead to better housing and opportunities for those who are affected by the project. So we will go through several topics today. We will start from replacement principle and replacement cost under ADB's policies, and to think through how valuation is different under compulsory acquisition. Then we will discuss valuation of income losses and how it usually works. We will explore on participatory valuation and how to ensure that valuation is grounded in local realities, or as Deputy Minister mentioned earlier, is context specific, is aligned with the context. We will share a small case study from which we learned how engagement with people is really important to come up with proper compensation, and then what are the general challenges that we can have in different countries' contexts. So let me begin with the fundamental concept that underpins how we approach compensation in ADB supported projects, and this is the principle of replacement. Infrastructure projects supported by ADB frequently involve involuntary land acquisition based on eminent domain law. It is the right of the state to acquire the property of its citizens for a public purpose with due compensation paid at fair and just market value usually. But this is the acquisition of land without owner's consent. Now, in usual valuation practice, particularly in real estate markets, we usually think in terms of market value under willing buyer, willing seller transactions. And this is working very well in voluntary transactions and voluntary deals. But in involuntary acquisition, the situation is different. Affected people are not choosing to sell. They are required to give up their homes, their land, and in many cases, their means of income and social networks for the public good. This is why ADB's approach, guided by our environmental and social safeguards policies, requires not just market value, but a replacement cost. This means we must look beyond the price tag of the asset. We must ask, can the person actually replace what they have lost with the compensation that we will provide? And here, the role of you as valuation experts become essential. Your job in this context is not only to determine how much the land, structure, apartments would sell for on the market. It is to think further and assess whether with that compensation, affected households can rebuild their lives, their homes, their land, their livelihood under these new conditions where project put them. Replacement cost, as demonstrated on the slide, includes market value, but also transaction costs, taxes, registration, transitional and additional restoration costs that could be needed. And policy of ADB is explicitly defining that depreciation of assets or amortization shouldn't be applied when you valuators are applying cost method to the structures and improvements. In many cases, it's not just about replacement of the one plot with another plot, or one structure with another structure. It is about reestablishing of a functioning, sustainable livelihood systems of the households and communities affected. It connects directly to the livelihood restoration of affected people. And this is especially important for vulnerable and disadvantaged groups, such as poor people, people with disabilities, elderly people, children, because for them, it's much more difficult to restore income sources and properties. It's much more challenging. Some affected people may need land-for-land compensation to maintain, for example, farming-based livelihoods. And here, evaluators also have a role to play to support and assess equivalence of the proposed land. What are the main criteria to understand the equivalence, and how that story of restoration and rehabilitation will sound with the provision of the replacement land. Other households may require monetary and non-monetary support if their livelihoods are affected, such as small shops, small businesses, or employment losses. One area that is usually overlooked in the valuation process when we speak about livelihood impacts are the value of non-market livelihoods and subsistence systems. These are sources of income that are not typically bought or sold and therefore do not appear in market transactions. But they are really very critical for the well-being of the households. Think of self-produced crops consumed by the households, or goods that they exchange through barter, or natural resources like water, firewood, forest products that they are using. If we do not take this into account, we risk underestimating the full extent of losses of people and questioning their further restoration and rehabilitation of their livelihoods. So what are the solutions here, and how to ensure that all these issues are not overlooked? In practice, this means that your valuation work must be fully integrated and not isolated from all the savers processes, business processes. It must align with broader objectives of equitable compensation and social protection, not just financial accuracy. Valuation specialists should become an integral part of a social impact assessment team, approaching valuation from participatory perspective. If we apply a standard, one-size-fits-all market-based approach, and we will be blind to the real needs of affected people, we risk producing technically defensible and technically sound valuations, but socially inadequate. And this can lead to grievances in the projects, delays in project implementations, and failures to comply with our mission and objective to do development projects for good of all beneficiaries, including those who are affected. This is why valuation must be treated as an integral part of social impact assessment process. It's not a standalone, one-time technical task. It should shift from done in the office, next to the laptop approach, to a participatory mode that engage with people with realities on the ground. While participatory evaluation is not yet formally defined in the International Valuation Standards, and I think this is something that we can explore and think about, especially in the context of compulsory land acquisition, it refers to a practical and meaningful approach, one where affected people are not just subject of assessment, but they are contributing to the development of the approach, how we evaluate. By involving them directly, we are able to understand function and value of the assets from their perspective, and not just through the market benchmarks and numbers and databases that can be available. This helps define not only monetary value, but also to define the mitigation or story on how an asset will be replaced and how livelihoods will be restored for affected households. When people participate in shaping that process, it enhances the legitimacy, the accuracy, and acceptance of valuation outcomes by affected people. And it ensures that compensation that is proposed is not just fair on the paper, but it's fair in practice as well. Let me share one case demonstrating that value of participatory valuation in land acquisition. And this is where we, as a bank, are learning from complaints and engagement we are getting with affected people. In a small city, there was a dormitory constructed in 1940s. And that dormitory was converted into apartments and was affected by the road project. So there were 25 families living in the separate rooms in the dormitory, and initial valuation used a comparative market approach and assessed the market value of all the units and proposed the compensation. So on the paper, it looked very sound, argumentable, in line with all best international standards in terms of argumentation, thought flow, etc. But during consultations with the residents, they raised a serious concern. Even with full compensation, they would be unable to purchase any legal, comparable housing using in the market. And because the smallest legal apartments on the market were larger, governments and private sector stopped constructing similar types of buildings. So any available apartment was larger than whatever was acquired from them. So they were at risk of losing their legal apartments and area where they could live. But in consultation with the residents, a serious in response to that, valuation specialists engaged with the affected people and conducted deeper market analysis, demonstrating the lack of similar apartments in the market. And reassessment confirmed that replacement options are unavailable within original compensation range. So implementing agency adjusted the approach and rehabilitation allowance was paid to people. As a result, all households were able to secure appropriate new housing, most of them to the areas where they worked, quite closer for them to ensure they can sustain and continue their livelihoods. And to finish, just to highlight several challenges that participatory valuation could have. First, it really remains highly contingent to national systems and institutional capacity in the country. From one side, in some contexts, the absence of functional frameworks poses fundamental barrier and low capacity of valuation specialists. Alternatively, in countries with well-established valuation systems, anchored in legislation, decrees, guidelines, this is often limited flexibility to incorporate alternative approaches and be open in development context-specific approaches. Furthermore, in some jurisdictions, compensation laws prescribes how valuers should approach valuation of compensation, which also could become a challenge to engage with people and develop the approach through participation. Here are just several questions you can ask yourself in terms of where it could really help and what could be the limits of participatory valuation. When we can learn and what type of information we can get from affected people and what local knowledge can help us in development of the valuation approaches. But what are the limitations and what is the balance between technical expertise and knowledge and also the insights we can get from communities and affected people? And where is that technical judgment and professional judgment that should come into place. To know more about ADB and our environmental and social safeguards policies, you can use this QR code and go to our newly approved safeguards policy, which will be effective from next year, our environmental and social framework. Thank you for having me here with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zara. That was a compelling presentation. Our next speaker is a well-known gentleman here, Eric Ariono, Mr. Eric Ariono. He's the Director of Valuation from the Director General of the State Asset Management, DJKN, Ministry of Finance of the Republic of Indonesia. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks, Mr. Nicholas. I really lucky because to be the last presenter here, and before we have already a listening presentation from Ibu Ambunsari, Director General of Land Acquisition and Land Development, and also Mr. Mika Petri Torhorens from World Bank, and last Mrs. Saruhi Hairapetian from ADB. Okay, before we start with the topic, actually I just want to remind that Plenary 3 is about how to provide insight and understanding about two key factors to be considered. First, about key factors in the social impact assessment and considerations, and then maybe for the panel 4 in this afternoon, we also emphasize about the valuing unregistered land in the compulsory land acquisition, especially for the social value measurement and international experience. That's why in this situation and condition, I would take the topics is about the implementation of social impact assessment in the development of national strategic project. We call it PSN in Indonesia, because this is based on our experience. Let's say, to start this presentation by discussing an important topic, the implementation of social impact assessment in the development of national strategic project in Indonesia. We often focus on achieving physical target and also boosting economic growth. Equally important is understanding the social impact on the communities. The purpose of SIA, Bu Embun already explained about SIA, social impact assessment, to understand the impact of infrastructure development, which is often economically viable but not financially feasible. That's why SIA plays a vital role in ensuring that development of PSN not only foster economic growth, but we also ensure that social sustainability and justice and also well-being of local communities. Okay, we can start now. PSN, this is a project of significant importance to drive economic growth and equitable development in Indonesia, carried out by the government, regional government, and or state-owned enterprise. PSN projects aims to drive economic effectiveness and support development goals, such as strategic role in the national economy, social welfare, defense, and national sovereignty. This is also alignment across various infrastructure and national distribution of a project. In implementing of PSN, land acquisition, of course, is a very required, and this process, valuer play an important role in determining the land value that will be acquired for PSN project. In Indonesia, especially for the private valuer, such as Pak Hamid dan kawan-kawan, this is a very expertise in how to value relate with the land acquisition. Land acquisition, we can see in some of regulatory, but I will not explain one by one, but this is one of the simple regulation that is already set up in Indonesia. For valuation standard, we refer to Indonesian Valuation Standard, we call it SPI, number 204, and Directorate General of State Asset Management Regulation is number 16X of 2023. In practice in Indonesia, funding for land acquisition for PSN is carried out by the Ministry of Finance through the State Asset Management Agency, we call it ELMAN. The acquired land becomes state property and managed by the government as part of the effectiveness and also state spending. So every government expenditure, including land acquisition, need what we call it social impact assessment. So the main goal of SIA is to ensure the financing implement provide broad benefit to society and also to directly affected and for the surrounding area. Let's say from around 2016 to early 2025, more or less than 198 national strategy projects were complete with a total value of 1.614 triliun rupiah, or this is maybe around equivalent with the 95 billion US dollar. Of this, ELMAN has carried out land acquisition for 130 PSN projects, with the total value is 140.226 trillion Indonesia rupiah. Yes, this is maybe around 1.31x billion US dollar, and is covering around 207.034 land plots with an area around 343.5 hectares. The data annual finding realization for land acquisition by ELMAN showing the government commitment to supporting the accelerate infrastructure development through land provision. So the sector with the highest finding realization for land acquisition is PSN are transportation and energy. However, there are some projects that have not yet provided significant financial impact, which is why SIA is necessary. First, to identify the benefit of land acquisition in PSN project, not only the providing land, but also ensuring that the process bring positive impact to the community. And the second, ensure that the acquired land is utilized for the intended purpose. So lastly, ensure the management of state asset, including land acquisition for PSN, is conducted very transparently and also accountability. For this slide, we know it that SIA is used to evaluate the extent to which a project provides a tangible contribution to the economy and public welfare. This analysis is data-driven and serve input for planning, implementation, and also project evaluation. Through SIA, we can access not only the direct economic benefit, but also the long-term effect of society and the environment. In practice, we know that implementation of SIA by government appraiser follow the method online in this slide. This is only just what we call it like example. Let's say we can use quantitative description method and then input-output method, computable general equilibrium method, qualitative description method, and others. So many methods that we can using. And then the Ministry of Finance, particularly Directorate General State Asset Management, continues to refine the ISA implementation standard. So the success of SIA depend on key factors such as economic growth, job creation, cost efficiency of activity in society, increase in money circulation, and other. So SIA implementation will greatly depend on the type of national strategic project as shown in the following slide. Okay, for example, like a toll road construction, we can see that the benefit are smoothing for traffic flow and improving the distribution of goods and services. Well, the impact of toll road construction is accelerate regional development around the toll road location. And the other example, like airport and port construction, we can see that the benefit are improving the distribution of goods and services and serving as connection for people traveling between islands. While the impact is accelerate regional development around the airport and also port area. For healthcare facility construction, we can get the benefit are improving healthcare services for the public and increasing public awareness of health. Well, the impact is the increase the life of expectancy. One of the case conducted by Directorate General State Asset Management related to SIA is the analysis of the economic and social impact of Project Strategi Nasional. This is such as Pekanbaru, Kandis Dumai Toll Road, and the Kuningan Dam. Especially for the Pekanbaru Kandis Dumai Toll Road, this is located in Riau Province, connect the city of Pekanbaru with the Dumai. It was second largest city in Riau. The toll road spanned around 131.69 kilometers, divided into 8 segments, and was built from 2016 to 2020. How about the construction cost of Pekanbaru Kandis Dumai Toll Road is around 12.18 trillion rupiah, and the economic impact of the project is estimated around 3.68 trillion Indonesia rupiah, or around $216.282 million US dollar. So the economic benefit derived from this project, including reducing logistic costs, improving the distribution of goods and services, facilitating accessibility to and from the area, enhancing the productivity of Tenayan and Dumai industry, also increasing trip generation and attraction, and lastly is development of toll road infrastructure will enhance investor interest. Next, for the last presentation. The Kuningan Dam is located in West Java province and benefit the community in Kuningan Regency. Around area is 221 hectares with a total volume of 25.69 million meter cubics, was completed built in 2023. The construction cost of Kuningan Dam is around 513 billion Indonesia rupiah, or around 30.433 billion US dollar. Yeah. The impact of the project estimate around 10.70 trillion rupiah, or 694 million US dollar, with the benefit projection over around 50 years. So the economic benefit of the project including raw water supply, electricity generation, irrigation, and flood control. So for the last, in conclusion, the social impact assessment is not merely on administrative complement in national strategic projects. It is also a strategic tool to ensure that economic development goes hand in hand with the social development. And also we are not just building roads and bridges, but also actually the most important thing is how we can make it the future of our communities. Thank you for attention and participation.
Thank you very much. Our final, our final speaker will be Pak Hamid Yusuf, who's the Vice Managing Partner at KGPP and the Chairman of the MAPPI Committee. Well, there you are. I was looking for you everywhere. Please, come up. The floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Ladies and gentlemen, maybe I'm the final speaker, so I have the limited time, and I would like to talk about the social impact in property valuation for the land compensation in Indonesia. Please open the thing. Okay. In the context of valuation in Indonesia, social values are still not recognized except as economic values. Yeah, this is based on the regulation, PMK 101 from the Ministry of Finance. In development project with social impact always require compensation the property owners. For these valuations, based on the standard 204 and the PPI, the guidance of the standard 04, explain the factor that must be considered regarding social impact in a development project that require compensation value. So, valuer in Indonesia, they use this standard, SPI 204. Yes, for this valuation, we use fair replacement value, not market value, not fair market value. What is that the fair replacement value? Fair replacement value is the value of the owner, value to the owner, which is based on the equivalent of market value of the property. Any two components for the fair replacement value. First, market value for the physical aspects, and the second, non-physical loss. This is for the intangible adjustment. So, if you look for our calculations, maybe we can see the detail. Yeah, like that. Physical as the land, building, crop, trees, this is the physical loss. Yes, maybe any social impact, maybe no. Yeah, depend. And the second, non-physical. Non-physical, like economic loss, yeah, economic loss depend the business, job, works, crops produce. We can calculate the non-physical loss. The second, solatium. What is that, the solatium? Solatium is an emotional loss and intangible loss associated with the takeover of the land that is or was used a resident by the owner. This is the solatium. Third, transaction loss. Yeah, transaction loss like moving, legal, notary, property tax, and the others. And fourth, losses for the other premium. For the social impact, like the physical loss and the other premium for the customer lands. Yeah. And the final compensation, we give the waiting period charge. Then all our calculation we call fair replacement value, not market value. Yeah. So maybe yes, under the peraturan presiden, this from the president regulation, we have how the social impact we can calculations. Yes. Okay. Yes, like this. First, the cost of clearing for everything on the land. Yeah. And the second, mobilization. Third, house rent with a maximum period, 12 months, and the last, compensation for the loss of income from land utilization. This is under regulation, PEPRES, and the valuation, our valuation, yeah, this is, we use the fair replacement value. So, for the replacement value like this, yeah, the option fair replacement value first, second, and third. So, for the purpose for the handling social impact, we use the hierarchy tree like this. This is for the handling social impact based on the regulation. So, in Indonesia, this is the normal evaluation. We collaboration with the BPN, Bu Embun, and the team. Yeah, I think that is the social impact when you when we use for the land compensation project. The final conclusion, in Indonesia, property valuation that produce social value are still uncommon. Valuation related to social impact due to infrastructure development will receive compensation equivalent to the determined by the land valuer. Valuation related to land compensation for public interest based on regulation in Indonesia, the value determined from the land valuer opinion include the social impact. The basis of value applied for land compensation is replacement fair replacement value. What is the fair replacement value? Fair replacement value consists of two main elements in its measurement process. First, the element for replacement for potential physical loss for the real estate, and the second, potential non-physical loss. In this context, social impact are included in the category of non-physical losses. That is, thank you. I give to moderator.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have now concluded the presentations from our various speakers, and I'm going to ask the speakers to come back on stage, and so we can have our panel discussion. Pak Hamid, you can come back up. There's no escaping. Ibu and Bun, yes, everyone can come back up, and we'll have Mika virtually. All right. Eric, there's a microphone there. Okay. Well, this was a fascinating array of conversations here. We really went from I think the macro side of big policy decisions in Indonesia, and we'll talk about that, all the way to micro, very local problems that you're facing when it comes to land acquisition. So I think we have plenty of material here for a good Q&A. And I would like to start with Ibu Mbunsari. A question here. What struck me when looking at your presentation was how much progress has been made in the past 10, 15 years, right? And both for the toll rolls, the electrifications, and so on. Indonesia has made tremendous progress. When do you see this journey that you are on? When do you see it finishing? So I'd like to kind of set the stage here. There's been incredible progress. Where do you see this going, and when does it finish, the current wave of modernization and policy when it comes to land acquisition and infrastructure? You've got a microphone there. Let me help you. Oh, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nicholas. Thank you for your question. Allow me to answer your question in Bahasa.
Sure, no problem.
Okay.
I've got the translation here. Have we got another one for Ms. Zara? Could we have another one? Here you go, Zara. Yes, I think it should be on. On? There we go. There we go.
So there's a translator.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so then somebody will translate.
Loud or? Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay. Okay, terima kasih. Allow me, Mr. Nicholas. Sorry, pakai bahasa Indonesia. Jadi pendaftaran tanah di Indonesia, oke?
Yeah, go ahead.
Pendaftaran tanah di Indonesia, kami mengenal pendaftaran tanah itu ada beberapa tahapan. Yang pertama adalah pengukuran, perpetaan, pembukuan tanah, dan juga pensertifikatan. Jadi di sini ada tahapan. Jadi kalau di presentasi saya menyebutkan membedakan pendaftaran tanah dan juga pensertifikatan, karena tahapan yang tadi. Pada prinsipnya pensertifikatan atau kegiatan pendaftaran tanah itu fisik itu bidang tanahnya, kemudian ada subjek itu pemilik penguasaan tanah, kemudian yang ketiga adalah hubungan hukum antara subjek fisik dan subjeknya. Di kami tahapan itu dilaksanakan, yang pertama adalah melakukan pengukuran, memastikan fisik bidang tanah, apakah lokasinya, posisinya di peta, kemudian luasan tanahnya. Dan kalau itu sudah pasti dilakukan pembukaan tanah, diberikan NIB. NIB itu nomor identifikasi bidang, artinya bidang tanah itu sudah terpetakan. Itu satu tahapan proses pendaftaran tanah sudah selesai. Dan ini kita pastikan dapat selesai insya Allah sampai dengan akhir tahun ini. Akan tetapi untuk pensertifikatan, pensertifikatan ini karena ini mencari hubungan hukum antara fisik bidang tanah dengan subjeknya, dengan orangnya, apakah benar dia pemilik yang sah terhadap bidang tanah itu sehingga layak diberikan sertifikat. Itu membutuhkan waktu dan kendalanya lumayan. Karena sengketa pertanahan di Indonesia ini banyak. Kalau tanah itu sedang bersengketa, kita tidak bisa memberikan sertifikatnya. Jadi tujuan goal utama kita adalah mendaftarkan itu, artinya memetakan seluruh bidang tanah di Indonesia. Kemudian kalau sertifikasi memang kita tidak bisa prediksi sampai kapan, karena masalah sengketa pertanahan ini luar biasa. Jadi tentu saja bisa diterbitkan sertifikat sepanjang tanah itu sudah clean and clear, artinya benar-benar bidang tanah itu menjadi milik subjek orang yang betul-betul memenuhi persyaratan tadi. Jadi dia punya alas hak, tidak diklaim atau dikomplain oleh pihak lain, itu bukan aset, dan yang terutama bukan di dalam kawasan hutan dan sebagainya. Ada hal lain juga agak luar biasa di Indonesia. Ada beberapa masyarakat tertentu, memang tidak banyak, tetapi ini yang juga menjadi penyebab tidak komplitnya seluruh bidang tanah bersertifikat. Ada masyarakat yang enggan mendapatkan sertifikat hak atas tanah karena yang pertama, konsekuensi kalau sudah terdaftar, kalau dia mau pecah-pecah atau mau jual sebagian harus menggunakan pejabat pembuat akte tanah, harus pakai notaris. Sementara kalau jual beli di bawah tangan itu kan tidak membutuhkan PPAT, dan juga yang utama adalah perpajakan. Kalau tidak terdaftar, kalau tidak bersertifikat, mereka bebas jual beli tanpa perpajakan. Ini memang hal yang buruk buat kita, tetapi masih ada masyarakat yang enggan, tidak mau mensertifikatkan tanahnya karena alasan itu. Walaupun tidak banyak, tetapi itu merupakan kendala. Mungkin itu. Jadi kalau terdaftar, terpetakan saja. Kalau bersertifikat berarti legal certainty, kepastian hukum hak atas tanahnya ada. Okay?
It's fascinating to see how the policy becomes implemented in the reality, and it's very impressive to see the progress that has been made. And before we go to Mika, because I want to contrast what has been done in Indonesia with what you're seeing in Bhutan and elsewhere, I just want to follow up with one more question. In your presentation, you mentioned that there have been some changes in the regulation to reflect the different circumstances. There seems to have been a lot of flexibility over time to change the regulation to accommodate the reality on the ground. I'm thinking of the changes in 2023, the update to the law of 2012, right? To make it more realistic, or fine-tune it, to fine-tune the policy. Can you talk about the updates in 2023 relative to the original law as it started? And perhaps you can. Do you want to, Hamid? Do you want to perhaps translate my question or adapt the question?
I can help.
Okay, can you just ask this?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ya, mungkin pertanyaan dari Mr. Nicholas Bumbun itu terkait bagaimana mengakomodir fleksibilitas terkait dengan jadi bagaimana fleksibilitas dari sisi regulasi itu bisa bersifat akomodatif, karena pada realitanya itu masih banyak isu dan banyak problem yang itu sebenarnya mungkin masih harus diakomodir. Pertanyaan Nicholas adalah ke depannya bagaimana perubahan-perubahan atau tahapan-tahapan yang akan dilakukan dari pemerintah untuk menyempurnakan regulasi yang saat ini sudah ada dan bagaimana regulasi saat ini. Mungkin itu.
Baik, thank you, terima kasih Mr. Nicholas. Jadi di satu dekade kemarin sampai dengan sekarang, karena saya sampaikan di presentasi saya, dinamika pengadaan tanah, penyediaan tanah untuk pembangunan itu luar biasa. Kita melakukan banyak perubahan terhadap regulasi dan ini untuk mengakomodir dinamika, kondisi, kebutuhan penyediaan tanah bagi pembangunan untuk infrastruktur. Jadi saya tadi menggarisbawahi bahwa ada dua jenis penyediaan tanah. Utamanya besarnya adalah kalau tanah itu memang dimiliki oleh masyarakat. Dimiliki oleh masyarakat belum menjadi milik pemerintah atau belum menjadi milik pemerintah. Karena pada kenyataannya banyak juga tanah yang sudah dimiliki oleh pemerintah itu dikuasai oleh masyarakat. Jadi kami membagi dua peraturan itu. Yang pertama, kalau pengadaan tanah itu istilahnya kalau tanah itu belum dimiliki oleh pemerintah itu digunakan istilah pengadaan tanah. Kita menggunakan Undang-Undang 2 tahun 2012. Akan tetapi kalau tanah itu sudah dimiliki pemerintah tetapi dikuasai atau digarap oleh masyarakat, kita menggunakan penanganan dampak sosial kemasyarakatan. Regulasi ini juga luar biasa. Kita terus mengupdate tergantung dengan kebutuhan atau dinamika yang terjadi pada saat pelaksanaan. Tadi saya menyampaikan regulasi kita itu berubah-berubah terus. Mulai dari sebelum lahirnya Undang-Undang 2 2012 kita menggunakan Perpres. Begitu 2 2012 ternyata juga banyak sekali perubahan regulasi yang kita akomodir. Regulasi ini dirubah agar yang pertama adalah dapat berjalan, karena sebelumnya itu pengadaan tanah itu menjadi sesuatu yang katakanlah stuck, terhenti, tidak dapat berjalan dengan baik. Karena apa? Kalau tidak ada regulasi yang kuat, pelaksana itu akan ketakutan. Karena kalau melaksanakan sesuatu yang berkaitan dengan mengeluarkan uang negara dan tidak dengan regulasi yang pasti, itu akan membahayakan pelaksana. Karena kan maaf, kalau saya pakai istilah yang agak kurang nyaman, pelaksana kami banyak yang terkena masalah hukum karena ketidakjelasan regulasi. Karena yang utama kami sekarang harus memastikan regulasi yang dibuat itu juga melindungi pelaksana, bukan hanya memberikan kepastian hukum kepada pihak yang berhak atau pihak yang terdampak atau bisa jalan lancar dengan cepat, tetapi juga kami harus mempertimbangkan regulasi yang dibuat juga harus ada perlindungan bagi pelaksana. Jadi perubahan regulasi itu kami lakukan kajian berdasarkan apa yang sudah terjadi sebelumnya. Juga kami lakukan kajian, selama ini kami aktif dengan Mr. Satoshi misalnya kan terkait dengan SIA melakukan Satoshi bukan di World Bank lagi ya. Jadi dengan World Bank kami juga banyak melakukan kajian-kajian untuk memperkuat regulasi kami untuk 3 tujuan itu. Yang pertama untuk kepastian tersedianya tanah, untuk kepastian pihak yang berhak mendapatkan haknya selayaknya. Kemudian yang ketiga, kepastian agar pelaksana pengadaan tanah itu dapat terlindungi secara hukum. Demikian mungkin.
Thank you very much for expounding on that. Mika, I'd like to turn to you, and you made a very, very interesting case around Bhutan and really what you're doing there. And so when looking at the challenges that you face, would you say that it is, so you're facing a number of challenges, but would you say that it is the physical records, that it is the legal records that are the biggest challenges? Is it the data, the price data, or is it the capacity building of the valuation community over there, which is as you pointed out, still quite embryonic and still quite self-taught? So where on the spectrum is the biggest roadblock? Or do you have to align everything for it to work?
In the end, I think, and thank you, Nicholas, for this intriguing question.
Hang on one second, Mika, because we can't hear you. Can we turn up the?
Okay.
Okay, go ahead. Let's try now.
Do you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Perfect. Yeah. So in the end, I'm going to be boring and say everything is needed. However, I think Bhutan has been saved in terms of being a small market. And I think the pressure towards the valuation profession and the valuation services have been incremental in their growth. So I think Bhutan is still kind of in a pre-market era almost for the large parts of its real estate sector. So valuation profession has had time to organically develop. But I don't think that's the case in most areas around the planet and in most cities. I think market needs services fast and updating of values online all the time. And I think Bhutan doesn't have that. And now when they are moving into developing a whole new city, the Kalepung Mindfulness City, and they have big infrastructure development plans and so on and so on, I think the valuation profession can no longer be in the half state of dormancy that it has been recently. So we will be seeing a very fast development of the profession, and I think the biggest interest is demand, I think. I would answer, when there's demand, the profession and services will emerge. I think regulatory base and all these things are in good shape in Bhutan.
Yeah, well, thank you, Mika, and I can say that from the IVSC's position, we're very happy to be involved in bringing the standards and promoting professionalism for the valuation community over there. I'd like to turn to Zara now and ask some questions, or a question really that struck me when looking at your presentation, when hearing you speak. It's clear that there's a tension between the market value of an asset, even if it is difficult sometimes to determine, and the other aspects. You make a very compelling case. But where do you draw the line in what you ask the valuers to come up with? In a way, the valuer's job is to come up with a valuation, and still there are very good reasons for including other items. You mentioned the solatium, the recovery, and so on. Very good reasons for that. Is there not a paradox in asking the valuers to come up with estimates of something that is not a value? And how do you deal with that? And I realize this is a very, very tricky question. And I can see Parik nod because he recognizes the question, right? And don't worry, I'll ask you the same question too. Zara.
Yeah, can you hear me now? I will start with your last point, to ask valuators to do to assess something that is not value.
In a way, yeah.
And I think this is the fundamental difference from how we approach and where we want you to become part of us and our social safeguards team, thinking through the similar lines on what value is and what is the, starting from the objective of the compensation. So the mission is for the compensation to restore livelihoods of people and to replace their assets. And the value should reflect all different components that would result in that. More we work with valuation specialists, especially those who are following principles of international valuation standards. More I see that there are a lot of tools and approaches you apply that we can extend to these additional, as you say, additional values that we are considering. And if we will not take standard approach as we are doing usually, as valuators are doing usually, valuation profession has a lot of methods, approaches, concepts that could benefit the fair compensation and livelihood restoration related mitigations. I think tension is not on the level of methodology and technical knowledge. It's more about the perspective, how we approach valuation process, how we together look at that, and how we go integrated from the beginning of understanding of social impact through development of mitigations together with safeguards and valuation professionals and affected communities and government as a main stakeholder, and how we then come up with the compensation amount.
Sure. And that's a great response, thank you. That's very inspiring. And I would like to add also that within the IVSC, when we write the standards, one of the items that is at the forefront of what we do is the flexibility of the standards, so that it can be used in these cases. And in fact, that flexibility is informed by what comes from our members and our stakeholders. And I would like to include the fact that Indonesia has been, the example of Indonesia has fed into the changes of the standards, which in turn you are now deploying in your missions at the ADB, and is also trickling down into what Mika is doing in Bhutan and other regions. So I really want to emphasize this continuity here. And so we really depend on what is happening with the stakeholders in all these geographies, including Indonesia, which, as I've said many times over the course of this great conference, has been an example for other countries. So again, I think that's an important point to make, and I hope you indulge my point of view here.
May I add here,
please.
I'm really very impressed by the commitment of the government officials who were sharing here on their approaches, and also level of professionalism and understanding from valuation community here in Indonesia on the importance of these issues. And I think dedicating one day of the conference to discussing social impact assessment related issues and valuation in compulsory acquisition is also that a big indicator. And probably Indonesia could become one of those showcase countries with integrating of valuation and social impact assessments in the compulsory land acquisition in general, but also in the government-led programs. And I was very inspired with the last sentence that Deputy Minister shared on historical opportunity for valuation community in Indonesia, not to follow, but to lead. And I think this discussion is one of that examples. Thank you.
Yes, I have to agree. Thank you very much for making that excellent point. Arik, you've been nodding enthusiastically at everything I've said, which is something that doesn't happen very often. Anyone who agrees with me, that's a rare occurrence. So I'm going to ask you. Your presentation made a very clear case, or you were talking a lot about the SIA, and so in this assessment there are several variables. How do you weigh the different impacts in the SIA? Is it all about the life expectancy or about the savings? You gave two examples about the trillions of rupiah that have been saved, but how do you weigh this, these various factors?
Thank you so much, Mr. Nicholas, for your excellent question. Actually, when we talk about social impact assessment in Indonesia, you know, that we know, like Ibu Dirjen said, that future infrastructure spending in the Indonesia is largely depend on, this is like relate with the political direction and national development priorities. That's why I like Bappenas, you know, Indonesia Bappenas. And many projects especially is, they try to, what we call it, like, how to implement it. Like, you know, Indonesia now has a new capital and so. But everything is like, we talk about social impact, and then we try to evaluate one by one. This is which is the very good impact, especially for the society also. So it's depend on the situation and condition, and also like political will also. And like I told you before, is actually still some of national strategic projects still not implemented with by SIA, but we try to one by one now to evaluate about that. That's in Indonesia.
It's, yes, well, this is what I hear from both of our speakers, is that there's this big policy, this big strategic direction, and
Yes.
then the difficulty is implementing it on the ground and in a very complex reality.
Yeah.
And I think that's a strong argument. And I'd like to go to Pak Hamid. I would like to talk about, you know, you're seeing these changes in these policies, these strategic directions, and they filter down to the valuation profession. And we've talked about the complexities of implementation. Can you tell us a bit more about the main challenges for the valuation profession, the members of MAPPI, and how are you seeing all these changes that the people from the ministry, how is it being implemented? What are the difficulties or the areas where it goes very smoothly?
Okay. Thank you, Nick. So you asked about the challenges. Talk about the land compensation in Indonesia. Maybe.
Sorry, just maybe to be clear, the challenges in implementing the land compensation for the profession. You know, is it easy? Is it difficult?
For our profession.
Yes, absolutely.
I think one thing in Indonesia, maybe not Indonesia, all in the world, the main challenge, like Indonesia, we use fair replacement value. Yeah, when you use fair replacement value for the people, it's not to all people agree with the value. This is our problem. Yeah. The landowner tend to get compensation higher than market price, higher the fair replacement value. So under act in Indonesia, under law in Indonesia, the finish or the final results, we go to the court. Court, final for our results, gitu Bu ya. That is the regulation in Indonesia. Yeah, the people can appeal our violation. They give under act, under court 14 days. After that, they must go to the court for the appeal. That is. This is the fair. I think that is the fair.
Okay, so that's the main issue when it comes to
The main issue, yeah.
Okay, well that's fascinating.
Yes.
That's fascinating. We do have time for some Q&A here. So if you have any questions, are there any questions in the room? Oh, I've got a lot of hands going up. Well, anyway, thank you very much. There's a gentleman there on the right. Please state your name and go ahead with your question.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Mani Usilapan and I'm from Malaysia. I'm a valuer of real estate. I've been around for a long time. I've done land acquisition cases in Malaysia. My concern is the profession of valuation is grounded in the theory of value. And there are, the discipline requires a lot of study and all that. IVSC only has standards for market value. And whatever other aspects of valuation that requires market value. For basis other than market value, they are just described and there are no standards for them. And I can understand why. Because basis other than market value would be very particular to particular situations, as land acquisition would be, because every state, every regime has its own laws and regulations with regard to land acquisition matters, which is beyond market value in some cases. As you can see in Indonesia, they have a fair replacement value with a lot of other additions. Now, this is peculiar to developing and emerging markets and all that. In established markets like Europe and America, North America, for example, I don't think there is a problem because it's purely market value, severance, injurious affection, and disturbances and things like that. So it's covered. When it comes to specific countries like, say, outside that zone, then each country will have its own rules and regulations which are guarded. The question now is probably to see whether for example, your 104 in Indonesia covers all these aspects or not. And if it does cover, then that's fine, it will solve the problem. Your social impact study should have covered replacing people who are affected by this massive land acquisition. They have to move somewhere, and that should be covered under that kind of study. To put that burden on my point now is to put the burden on a valuer whose training is to determine, in the case of real estate values and anything that affects the real estate, and of course any disturbances that affect it is fine. But to add other things that the valuer should consider and add on is not within its domain. It has to be laid down by legislation somehow or other. Then we can follow it and see how we can attend to it. But doing valuation, you must bring in all the other factors to evaluation. Okay. My God, that cannot be done. I'm just a valuer.
Thank you for your question. Thank you for your question, and I think Zara wants to answer, but before you answer, I would just like to state that the IVS can accommodate any basis of value. That is to say that you can, in any scope of work, you can specify the basis of value and the constraints therein. So I'll just say that. That's a big conversation. But I think your point about I'm just a valuer is a good one. And maybe, Zara, do you want to elaborate again on the difference between the just a valuer and asking the valuers to do something else? Because we've been, maybe that point is worth repeating briefly.
Thank you for the question and concern raised. probably this was my point, that we shouldn't work separately. And the knowledge that you as evaluators have on the methodologies, on how to assess different bases of values, and the tools that you have, we are lacking that experience, expertise, and understanding. And this is not to put additional burden, but to work together to understand more on the context, to come up with the strategies, approaches that will benefit those who are affected by the projects. Thank you for the opportunity to share that, and I hope that continuous communication and engagement with each other will make that process less painful and more engaging and interacting. Thank you.
Thank you, Zara. Any other questions? Yes, there are a couple of hands. Why don't you walk to the mic? Yeah. Yeah, please go ahead. Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
You have a mic.
Nicholas. My name is Agustinus. I am the member of MAPPI. I want to ask Ms. Zahroye and Mr. Mika. In the Indonesian Standard Valuation number 204 in 2018, is already measure the other losses related to Pak Arik explained that the social impact assessment still work in process to determine how to measure the value and how to measure the items like mitigation or social losses. So for Ms. Zahra and Mr. Mika, yeah, from the ADB and World Bank, yeah, we want to know what your experience in another country, the implementation, the measurement, and about the approach and the methodologies to make valuation for the other losses. So I want to know the measurement in the other country. Because Indonesia still not applied the measurement. Thank you.
Mika, can you hear us or not?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, Mika's not here.
I am here.
Oh, you are here. Okay.
Yes, very happy to be here.
Okay. Did you hear the gentleman's questions, Agustino's question?
Yes, I did. I'm not sure I understand it correctly, but what I can say is that under the World Bank's replacement involuntary resettlement policies, we are measuring and obliging our compensations to be based on replacement value rather than market value. And I think that defines our approach to valuation when it comes to things that we finance.
Right.
Other than that, I would say that private sector valuation professions look very similar globally. The big differences are in the public sector abilities in valuation. And I think the private sector benefits hugely from the international valuation standards that are widespread globally. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Zara, anything to add?
If I understood the question correctly, it was about how we, in different countries, how they approach measurement of these additional social values, which we can identify through social impact assessment. And I think the next session in the second part of the day will be trying to explore on that opportunities, on how to measure additional social values. From my perspective, I would say that the policy of the Asian Development Bank is giving specific elements that have to be considered under replacement cost, which become an indicators of how we are trying to understand what are different impacts on the ground, like what are different sources of livelihood for people. Do they renting out their apartments and having additional income, and with acquisition of that apartment, they will lose not only the asset, but also income that they are generating. We have elements of restoration costs or transitional costs, meaning when you need some time to transit to another apartment, and this could impact your income losses as well, when you will not be able to work for 1 or 2 months while you are relocating. So there are some elements we are already considering by default in different countries based on experience, but then social impact assessment process and engagement with people and trying to think through starting from their losses into the final outcomes, we may have additional elements of the losses and respective values that have to be added. And I hope that we will continue that discussion in the second part of the day.
Thank you, Zara. I think, Pa Henrik, you have something to say about later now or later?
I just want to
okay, go ahead.
Make some, what we call it, like opinion from the Pa Antonius. Based on our experience before that, Corruption Eradication Commission and also the Attorney General already come to my office, ask about SIA and how to determine actually. It's like Mr. Antonio said, that is working on progress. We always discuss about this because so many things that should be considerations. That's why when they mention, is it the true that already with the true value or something like this, is it not very high or something like this? And I can say already valuer make a very good adjustment and consideration, because when we always talk about that, it's not never ending. I think that's my opinion about Pa Antonius' question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Do we have time for one more question? Oh, we have so many hands. Okay, a brief question from the lady or... I'm telling you, we are victims of our own success in this conference. We have so many questions.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and hi everyone. I'm Hamsia from Spain, Malaysia. Question to Ms. Zaruhi. Just simple question. Near the land rights and compensation action, every person or landowner has the right to receive fair compensation. My question is, how is the compensation calculation given so that the replacement cost is widely used and given fair to the landowner? Thank you.
Can you repeat the question, just the last bit of the question, please? About the replacement value?
Replacement cost is widely used and given fair to the landowner.
Okay. So how do we...
If I understood correctly, the question is how we ensure that replacement cost is fair to the landowner. And if I may link this to the challenge mentioned on perception of fairness, that is very different from landowners' perspective sometimes and from valuators and governments. So the basis for replacement cost under the MDB's policies is a market value. So this should be the fundamental element of the replacement cost, and this ensures the fairness if it's calculated transparently, if internationally acceptable processes and approaches have been applied. And the fairness is strengthened by additional elements, which includes transaction costs, so that people will not be forced to pay for the transactions or paying for additional transitional costs or some types of the taxes. But the fairness is also sometimes a little bit subjective concept. So we can ensure fairness through robust procedures and approaches. And I think international valuation standards are giving that robust fundament on how you need to think through which principles you have to consider to ensure the process is transparent and valuators are accountable for what they do. But the perspectives from affected people could be different. And one of our learnings is if we are transparent with affected people from the beginning on how we approach the evaluation, this helps to manage their expectations and to come to the same ground on what fairness is, how the project will approach the compensation strategy and valuation methodology, and through managing that expectations, we can come to the same ground with affected people on the understanding of the fairness.
Thank you, Zara. Renganis, did you have a question? Yeah, you have a question? Do you have a mic? Okay. You know what, I'll
And I'm really excited that valuation professionals has so many questions to social safeguard specialists, and we do have other safeguard specialists here in the room, and I would be happy to hear their responses as well, maybe during the break, to have some side conversations.
Yes, I think I just want to add on what we have discussed today, following your statement that we, valuer and social safeguard official from the development banks actually should work together to assess the social value, because we understand that replacement basis of replacement basis of value is actually the fundamental concept underlying the compensation that we will give to the deceased people. So in the Indonesian Valuation Standard 204, actually we have acknowledged this fair replacement value as market value plus the non-physical losses, which include business interruption, solation, moving costs, all the element that is involved in the social value. So I think then we could start from there to really collaborate and working together to give a good solution, because as you also mentioned that valuation is not just technical issue, especially for valuation of unregistered land, compulsory land acquisition, because people's life is there that should not be worse off because of the development of infrastructure. So, like our Vice Minister said, that this is moral. We are a moral protection as a valuer, as well as you as a development bank's official. Like we need to really get these objectives and work together. I think that's the message.
Thank you.
I cannot agree more.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Renganis, for that great clarification. And indeed, I think, we have one more question, but before we go, but it's great to see that, again, Indonesia is integrating the IVS and again is serving as an example to the next countries that are going through the same development. So that's great. Okay, one more question from the gentleman from Brunei. Okay.
Look, it's not much of a question, but I think I would just like to share our experience in my country. I'm Don Omar from Brunei. I think common in Commonwealth countries which practice the land registration system known as torrents, we all have Land Acquisition Act atau Akta Pengambilan Tanah. And under this act, it clearly states that the valuer has to come up with valuation based on the normal 5 methods of valuation. But in addition to that, the act also said that the affected party, pihak yang terlibat, must be compensated equitably. So when they are compensated, they must be not better off, but at least they must be equitable to what they have suffered. So I think nowadays there is this jargon of social impact assessment, but in most countries like Brunei, Malaysia, it is covered under the act, where there are injurious affection, there is severance, loss of income. So the affected party must be compensated equitably. So in that valuation, it has already taken into consideration all the social impacts and economic impacts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that observation. I would like to thank our panelists for a really interesting and rich discussion. I think this was fantastic and really gave some interesting insights into a complicated topic. So I think we can applaud our panelists for this. Thank you very much.